Why was everyone laughing at the woman with the mop? What did they see that made them think she was nothing? Just another invisible face in the corridor, another body pushing water across polished floors, another person they could dismiss without a second thought. But there was something about her, something in the way she moved, something in the way she held that mop. Master Sergeant Tommy Walsh saw it first. The grip, the stance, the weight distribution, all wrong for cleaning, all right for something else. Something dangerous. And in the next 20 minutes, everything they believed would shatter like glass. The laughter echoed through Naval Amphibious Base Little Creek. Sharp, cutting, the kind that slices through dignity and leaves scars you can't see. Admiral Hendrick's voice boomed across the polished floor like a weapon. "Hey, sweetheart, what's your call sign, Mop Lady?" The group of senior officers surrounding him erupted. Commander Victoria Hayes smirked. Lieutenant James Park crossed his arms with that satisfied grin of someone who'd never been humiliated. Chief Rodriguez practically doubled over. 40-plus personnel in the corridor, SEALs, training instructors, administrative staff, all turned to watch, all waiting for the show. The woman they were mocking didn't look up, small, maybe 5'4", wearing the standard maintenance crew uniform that hung loose on her frame. Dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Nothing about her suggested she was anything other than what she appeared to be. Just another invisible worker keeping the base clean. But Walsh couldn't shake it. That feeling crawling up his spine like ice water. He'd seen combat in Fallujah. He'd seen enemies disguised as civilians. He'd learned to trust his instincts because instincts kept you alive. And every instinct he had was screaming that something was wrong with this picture. "Come on, don't be shy," Hendricks pressed, stepping closer. "Everyone here has a call sign. What's yours, Squeegee?" "Floor wax." More laughter rippled through the crowd, the kind that feeds on itself. The kind that turns good people into bullies because no one wants to be the target. The woman finally paused. She straightened slowly. And for just a moment, less than a second, something flickered across her face. Not anger, not embarrassment, something colder. Something that made Walsh's hand unconsciously move toward his sidearm. Then it was gone. She lowered her head and returned to mopping. But Walsh was watching now, really watching. Her eyes swept the corridor in a pattern he recognized immediately. Left corner, high right corner, low center mass, exits, potential threats, 3-second intervals, perfect tactical scanning. The kind drilled into operators until it became as automatic as breathing. She wasn't looking at dirt on the floor. She was maintaining situational awareness of every person, every movement, every potential danger in her environment. Walsh felt his mouth go dry. Who was this woman? Commander Hayes noticed Walsh's attention and misinterpreted it entirely. "Sergeant, defending the help now." Her voice carried that particular cruelty of someone who'd fought hard for her position and resented anyone she perceived as weak. Maybe she needs a strong man to speak for her. The woman's jaw tightened, almost imperceptible. Still, she said nothing. And that silence, that was discipline. The kind you don't learn from manuals. The kind that comes from missions where one word at the wrong time gets people killed. Lieutenant Park pushed off from the wall where he'd been lounging. "Actually, I'm curious now." He gestured toward the weapons rack visible through the nearby armory window. "Hey, you, maintenance lady, since you're cleaning our facilities, maybe you can tell us what those are called." He pointed at 3 rifles mounted in sequence. A test, a game, a way to prove she was nothing. The woman looked up slowly. Her eyes, dark brown, unremarkable at first glance, focused on the weapons with an intensity that made Walsh's breath catch. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. "M4 carbine with ACOG optic, with standard iron sights. HK-416 with EOTech holographic sight." Park's smirk faltered. Those weren't civilian names. Those were proper military designations. The kind you only knew if you'd trained with them, if you'd carried them into combat. If you'd trusted your life to them, in situations where hesitation meant death. "Lucky guess," Rodriguez sneered, stepping forward. He was a thick man, used to using his size to intimidate, used to people backing down, probably heard some jarhead use those words. As if to punctuate his dismissal, he deliberately kicked over her mop bucket. Gray water spread across the polished floor. A statement, A power play, a reminder of who mattered and who didn't. What happened next occurred so fast that several witnesses would later argue about the exact sequence. The bucket tipped. A metal clipboard fell from a nearby desk, headed straight for the spreading water. The woman moved. Her hand shot out and caught the clipboard 6 inches from the water. Not grabbed at it. Caught it. Clean pluck from the air with the kind of hand-eye coordination that required thousands of hours of training. The kind of reflexes that meant the difference between life and death when a grenade rolled into your fighting position. The corridor went quiet, 3 full seconds of absolute silence. Then Hendricks laughed again, but it sounded forced. Good catch. Maybe you should try out for the softball team. Young Corporal Anderson, part of the maintenance crew and the only one who tried to befriend the quiet woman in the 6 months she'd worked there, stepped forward. Admiral, sir, with respect, maybe we should. Corporal. Hendricks didn't even look at him. Did someone ask for your input? No, sir. Then keep your mouth shut. Hendricks turned back to the woman who had already retrieved a second mop and was cleaning up the spilled water with the same methodical efficiency she brought to everything. You know what? I'm curious about something. You've got all-access clearance. That's unusual for maintenance. She reached into her pocket without pausing in her work and produced her badge. The magnetic strip gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Level 5 clearance. Full base access, including restricted training areas. Park snatched it from her hand, examined it closely. How does a cleaner get level 5? Background check cleared 6 months ago. Her voice remained level. You can verify with security. From the second-floor medical office, Dr. Emily Bradford watched the scene unfold with growing unease. She'd treated this woman twice. Once for a scraped knuckle, once for what appeared to be an old shoulder injury acting up. Both times the woman had demonstrated an unusually high pain tolerance and an encyclopedic knowledge of field medicine. Bradford had noted it in her personal log but hadn't thought much of it. Now, watching the predatory circle of senior officers, she felt her instincts screaming. Hendricks was warming to his game now. He could feel the crowd's attention, feel the weight of his recent promotion. He'd spent 20 years clawing his way up the SEAL command structure, and now he finally had the respect he deserved. This was his base, his command, his moment. Tell you what, sweetheart, since you seem to know so much about our weapons, why don't you explain proper maintenance procedure for that M4 you identified? Shouldn't be too hard for someone with all-access clearance, right? The woman set down her mop. She walked to the armory window and pointed at the rifle without touching it. Barrel requires cleaning every 200 to 300 rounds, more frequently in desert environments due to sand infiltration. Bolt carrier group should be cleaned and lubricated every 500 rounds minimum. Gas tube requires inspection, but not cleaning unless malfunction occurs. Buffer spring needs replacement every 5,000 rounds or as indicated by failure to return to battery. Magazine springs are the most common point of failure and should be rotated regularly. Park's face had gone from smug to uncertain. That was word for word from the armorer's manual. Anyone can memorize words, he said, but his voice had lost its edge. You want practical demonstration. She turned to face him directly for the first time. Her posture had changed. Subtle, but Walsh saw it. The way a sheep dog stands different when it stops pretending to be a sheep. Sure, Hendricks waved at the armory sergeant. Get that M4 out here. Let's see what the help knows about weapon handling. The armory sergeant, a grizzled staff sergeant named Collins who'd been quietly watching the whole exchange, hesitated. Sir, regulations require. I'm aware of regulations, Sergeant. Get the weapon. Collins retrieved the M4, cleared it with practiced efficiency, locked the bolt to the rear. He placed it on the counter between them, uncomfortable with the whole situation, but unable to disobey a direct order from an admiral. The woman approached the weapon. Her hands moved before Walsh could even process what he was seeing. Field strip. The rifle came apart in a blur of controlled motion. Upper receiver separated from lower. Bolt carrier group extracted. Firing pin removed. Bolt broken down. Charging handle. Buffer spring. Every component laid out in perfect sequence in 11.7 seconds. The crowd had gone silent again, but this time the silence felt different, heavier. Because what they just witnessed wasn't something you learned from YouTube videos or civilian shooting courses. That was muscle memory built through thousands of repetitions under stress. That was operator-level proficiency. Then she reassembled it, faster, 9.3 seconds. The rifle snapped together with mechanical precision. She performed a functions check, charging handle, trigger, magazine release, bolt catch, all smooth, all perfect. She handed it back to Collins, who accepted it with something that looked like respect in his eyes. "Weapon is combat ready," she said quietly. And those three words changed everything. Because that wasn't how civilians talked. That was the language of warriors. What else was she hiding? That's what everyone was thinking now. The laughter had died, the smirks had faded. Something had shifted in the corridor. The woman with the mop had just demonstrated skills that took years to develop, skills that belonged to a very specific type of person. And suddenly, the joke didn't seem funny anymore. It seemed dangerous, like they'd been poking something that could bite back. Hendricks felt control slipping away. He'd wanted to put this woman in her place, wanted to remind everyone who had the power here, but now doubt was creeping in. He could see it in the faces around him, the way people were looking at her differently, the way Walsh had moved closer, his posture protective rather than observant. The Admiral needed to regain control, needed to prove he was still in charge. "Impressive party trick," he said, forcing confidence into his voice. "But anyone can take apart a rifle when there's no pressure. Real operators perform under stress, under fire, in conditions where one mistake costs lives." The woman met his gaze for the first time, really met it, and Hendricks felt something cold settle in his chest. Her eyes weren't angry, they weren't defiant, they were calm, absolutely, utterly calm. The kind of calm you only saw in people who'd been to war and come back changed. "You want to test that theory, Admiral?" Her voice was soft, almost gentle, but underneath, steel. Before Hendricks could respond, the base alert system crackled to life. "All personnel, this is not a drill. Report to emergency briefing room Delta immediately. I say again, this is not a drill." The corridor emptied in seconds, officers moving with purpose toward the briefing room. The woman set down the M4, picked up her mop, and started to walk away. "Hold on," Walsh called after her. She turned. "You're coming to this briefing. I'm maintenance crew, that's for operators. Something tells me you're more than that." She studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. They moved together through the base, joining the stream of personnel flooding into the briefing room. The space was designed to hold 80 people. Today it was packed with over 100. SEALs, Marines, Air Force combat controllers, the cream of America's special operations community, and one woman in a maintenance uniform who somehow didn't look out of place anymore. Admiral Patterson stood at the front of the room, 3 stars on his collar, a man who'd commanded missions from Afghanistan to Syria. His face was grave. 12 hours ago, Lieutenant James Park was captured by hostile forces in Yemen. He was on a classified intelligence-gathering operation. He's currently being held in a compound approximately 40 kilometers from the border. We have reason to believe he'll be moved or executed within the next 18 hours. The room erupted in controlled chaos, officers asking questions, team leaders already thinking about logistics. Walsh felt his stomach tight. Park was the same lieutenant who'd been mocking the woman not 20 minutes ago, the same man who'd kicked over her bucket and laughed at her silence. "The mission is high risk," Patterson continued. "The compound is heavily fortified. We estimate 30 to 40 hostile combatants. The terrain is mountainous. The weather is deteriorating, and political sensitivities mean we have a narrow window for extraction. We need our best people on this." He paused, looked directly at Walsh. "Master Sergeant, your mission commander, select your team." Walsh stood, started nomming operators. Morrison, Chen, Rodriguez, men and women he'd trained with, fought beside, trusted with his life. Then he hesitated, looked back at the woman in the maintenance uniform, still standing quietly near the wall. Something in him, that same instinct that had saved him in Fallujah, made him say, "And her." Every head turned. Patterson frowned. "Sergeant, that's a civilian contractor." "With respect, sir, I don't think she is." The woman didn't move, didn't speak, just waited. Patterson's eyes narrowed. "Identify yourself," she straightened. And suddenly the maintenance uniform seemed like exactly what it was, a disguise, a costume, a way to hide in plain sight. "Captain Sarah Chen, United States Marine Corps Force Recon, Ghost Unit 7, retired." The room went absolutely silent. Ghost Unit 7. Most people in that room had never heard of it, those who had never spoke about it. It was the kind of unit that didn't officially exist. The kind that handled missions so classified that success meant silence and failure meant denial. The kind of operators who were so good at their jobs that governments pretended they weren't real. "You're Chen." Patterson's voice had changed, from commanding to respectful. "Night Fox," she nodded once. "I thought you were dead," someone whispered from the back of the room. "That was the idea," she replied quietly. Walsh felt his world tilt. Night Fox, the legend, the ghost, the operator who'd completed missions that shouldn't have been possible, the sniper who'd held a position alone against an entire platoon for 14 hours, the intelligence officer who'd infiltrated a terrorist network so deep that she'd been presumed KIA for 8 months. The warrior who'd saved so many lives that her real body count was classified, and she'd been mopping floors. "Why?" Hendricks found his voice, though it came out strangled. "Why were you working maintenance?" Sarah Chen's expression didn't change. "Because I retired, Admiral. Because I did my service and I earned the right to choose peace. Because after 12 years of war, I wanted to be invisible. I wanted to be nobody. I wanted to push a mop and go home without wondering if today was the day I didn't come back." She paused, let that sink in. "I wanted what you took from every person who ever served, the chance to be normal, to be overlooked, to be safe." Her eyes swept the room. "But you couldn't let me have that, could you? You had to mock, you had to humiliate, you had to prove you were better than the person cleaning your floors." The weight of her words hit like physical blows. Hayes looked at the ground. Rodriguez had gone pale. Even Hendricks seemed to shrink under her gaze. "Captain Chen," Patterson stepped forward. "We need you for this mission. Park is good officer, young, reckless sometimes, but he doesn't deserve to die in that compound. And frankly, we don't have time to assemble a team with your skill set. You're the best sniper we've ever trained, the best intelligence operator, the best—" "I'm retired," she interrupted. "I earned that retirement. I paid for it with pieces of myself I'll never get back." "I know," Patterson said softly, "and I have no right to ask this of you, but that young man who mocked you today, he's someone's son, someone's brother, and he's going to die if we don't move fast. I can order Sergeant Walsh and his team to go, but I can't order you. I can only ask, please, one more mission. Then you can go back to being invisible. I promise." Sarah Chen stood there in her maintenance uniform, surrounded by the finest warriors America had produced. Men and women who were just beginning to understand what she'd sacrificed, what she'd given up, what she'd earned the right to walk away from. She thought about Park, about his smug face when he'd mocked her, about the way he'd snatched her badge like she was nothing. She thought about how easy it would be to say no, to let him face the consequences of his own actions, to finally be done with war. But she also thought about his mother, about the notification team that would show up at her door, about the flag they'd hand her at the funeral, about the hole in that family that would never heal. She thought about the operators who'd died saving her when she'd been captured, about the warriors who'd never made it home because someone else had refused to go. "I'll need my gear," she said finally. "It's in storage unit 47, and I'll need full operational authority. No interference, no second guessing. I run this mission my way." Patterson didn't hesitate. "Done. One more thing," Sarah's voice was harder now. "When this is over, when Park is home safe, you never contact me again, you never call, you never send letters, you let me disappear, you let me have the peace I earned. Understood?" "Understood, Captain." She nodded, turned to Walsh. "Get your team ready. We leave in 2 hours, and Sergeant—" "Yes, ma'am. This is going to be the hardest mission of your life. Lieutenant Park is in a compound that's designed to be impenetrable. The enemy knows we're coming. The odds are not in our favor. Some of us might not come back. Are you sure you want to do this?" Walsh met her eyes, saw the weight of every mission she'd ever run, every life she'd taken, every friend she'd lost, every night she'd woken up screaming from memories that wouldn't fade, and he understood finally what it meant to be an operator, what it cost, what it took. "I'm sure, ma'am." "Then let's go bring that arrogant kid home." Have you ever packed for a mission knowing you might not come back? Have you ever held your gear in your hands and wondered if this was the last time? That's where Sarah Chen stood 2 hours later, in the equipment room, surrounded by the tools of her trade, the weapons, the armor, the technology that kept operators alive in situations designed to kill them, and every piece felt heavier than she remembered. Her hands moved automatically, muscle memory taking over: plate carrier, load-bearing vest, magazine pouches, medical kit, comms equipment, layer after layer of gear that transformed her from a woman into a weapon. She caught her reflection in a metal locker door. The maintenance uniform was gone. In its place was combat fatigues. Her face was different too, harder, focused. The mask she'd worn for 12 years. The mask she'd thought she'd taken off for good. "Captain," Morrison stood in the doorway, young, maybe 25, a SEAL with 3 deployments under his belt, good operator, good kid, but he was looking at her like she was a ghost made flesh. "We're almost ready for final briefing." "I'll be there in 5, he hesitated. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" Sarah didn't look up from her gear check. "Make it quick." "Is it true what they say about Fallujah, about you holding that position alone?" "Depends what they say." "That you stayed for 14 hours. That you were wounded. That you kept fighting even when command told you to pull out. That you saved an entire platoon." Sarah's hands paused on her rifle, memories flooding back. The heat of the Iraqi sun, the smell of cordite and blood, the weight of her rifle after 12 hours of continuous fire, the radio chatter begging her to evacuate, the knowledge that 30 Marines were pinned down and she was the only thing between them and death. "It was 16 hours, she said quietly. "And I wasn't wounded until hour 12, and I didn't save them because I was brave. I saved them because leaving wasn't an option. Because that's what you do. You hold the line even when the line is breaking. You fight even when fighting seems pointless. You stay even when staying means dying, because lives depend on you." She turned to face him. "That's what being an operator means, Morrison. It's not about the medals or the glory or the stories people tell. It's about the choice you make when everything is falling apart, when you're bleeding and exhausted and terrified, when every instinct screams at you to run. That's when you find out who you really are. That's when you learn what you're made of." Morrison swallowed hard. "I want to be like you." "No," Sarah's voice was firm. "You don't. You want to be like the person you think I am, the legend, the myth. But I'm not that person, Morrison. I'm someone who's killed more people than she can remember. Someone who's seen friends die in her arms. Someone who spent 8 months undercover in a terrorist cell doing things she'll never be able to talk about. Someone who can't sleep without medication and can't look at crowds without calculating threat assessments." She stepped closer. "I'm broken, Morrison. I'm functional, I'm effective, but I'm broken in ways you can't see. And if you're smart, you'll serve your time, do your duty, and then get out before the war takes pieces of you that you can't afford to lose." The young SEAL studied her face, saw the truth there, the scars that didn't show, the damage that went deeper than flesh. "Then why are you going back? If it broke you, why are you doing this?" "Because Park is 26 years old. Because he has his whole life ahead of him. Because maybe, just maybe, this is how I earn my peace. By making sure one more kid gets to go home." The briefing room was tense when she entered. 12 operators, the best of the best. Men and women who'd trained for years to be in this position. They fell silent when Sarah walked in. She could feel their eyes on her, could sense their doubt, their curiosity, their judgment. She was older than most of them, smaller than most of them. And until 2 hours ago, they'd thought she was maintenance crew. Patterson stood at the front. "Captain Chen will brief you on operational parameters." Sarah moved to the display screen. Satellite imagery of the compound appeared. 3 buildings, high walls, guard towers, a nightmare of defensive positions. "This is where Park is being held. The main building, center structure. Based on heat signatures and comm intercepts, we estimate 38 hostile combatants. Most are experienced fighters, former military from various countries, well-trained, well-equipped. They know we're coming." She zoomed in. The compound is built into a mountainside, one road in, one road out. Approach is exposed for approximately 1 kilometer. They have RPGs, heavy machine guns, and at least 2 dedicated sniper positions. In tactical terms, this place was designed to be a kill box. Chen from the SEAL team raised his hand. So how do we get in? We don't, Sarah replied. Not through the front. The road is suicide. Instead, we're inserting here. She marked a point on the map 3 kilometers from the target. We'll fast rope from helicopters into this valley. Then we move on foot through this ravine. It's steep, it's dangerous, and it'll take us 4 hours to cover the distance. But it brings us to the back of the compound where their defenses are weakest. Rodriguez, the same chief who'd kicked her bucket, spoke up. 4 hours on foot in that terrain, at night, with full gear. You have a problem with that, Chief? Sarah's voice was flat. No, ma'am, just making sure I heard correctly. You heard correctly. And for the record, I don't care that you kicked over my bucket. I don't care that you laughed at me. I don't care about any of it. Because when we're in that compound, when rounds are flying and Park is bleeding out, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is whether you can do your job. Can you? Rodriguez stood straighter. Yes, ma'am. Good, because I need everyone at their best. This isn't a training exercise. This isn't a simulation. This is life and death, and the margins are razor thin. She continued the briefing. Entry points, extraction routes, contingency plans, comm protocols, rules of engagement. Every detail mapped out with the precision that came from years of experience. The operators listened, asked questions, began to understand that the woman they'd mocked was the real deal. When the briefing ended, Walsh approached her. Captain, about earlier. Save it, Sergeant. I don't need apologies. I need your team focused and ready. They will be, but I need to say this. I saw something in you from the start. The way you moved, the way you scanned. I should have said something, should have stopped it. Sarah met his eyes, saw genuine regret there. You know what you should have done, Walsh? You should have treated me with basic human dignity regardless of whether I was an operator or not. The woman pushing that mop deserved respect even if she'd never held a rifle. The fact that you only care now that you know who I am, that's the problem. She turned away, started toward the armory to finalize her gear, but Walsh caught her arm. You're right, and I'll do better, but I need you to know everyone on this team will follow you tonight. They'll trust you with their lives because word has spread. They know who you are now. They know what you've done. They know the legend, Sarah corrected. They don't know me, and that's fine. As long as they follow orders and don't get themselves killed, we'll all get through this. 3 hours later, they were airborne. 2 helicopters cutting through the night sky, wind buffeting the cabin, the rhythmic thump of rotors drowning out all but the loudest conversation. Sarah sat quietly, checking her gear one final time. Her rifle was a custom M110 semi-automatic sniper system, .308 caliber, effective range up to 800 meters. She'd used this exact rifle in 17 different operations. It had never failed her. Beside her, Morrison was breathing hard, first time going into a hot extraction. She could see the fear in his eyes, the what-if spinning through his mind. She leaned close so he could hear her over the rotors. You're going to be fine. How do you know? Because I'm going to make sure of it, because that's what team leaders do. We bring everyone home. What if? No what-ifs. You focus on your training, you trust your team, you do your job, everything else is noise. The helicopter pilot's voice crackled over the comm. 2 minutes to drop zone. Sarah stood, checked her harness, looked at each operator in turn. Listen up. When we hit the ground, we move fast and silent. No chatter unless absolutely necessary. I'll take point. Walsh brings up the rear. We stick to the route we briefed. We don't take shortcuts. We don't improvise. We follow the plan. Understood. A chorus of yes, ma'am filled the cabin. One more thing. Some of you laughed at me today. Some of you thought I was nothing. I don't hold grudges, but I need you to understand something. When we're out there, when things go wrong, and they will go wrong, I need you to trust me completely. No hesitation, no second guessing. Can you do that? Silence. Then Rodriguez spoke. Ma'am, I'll follow you into hell if that's what it takes to bring Park home. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Chief. The helicopter descended, fast and hard. Sarah's stomach lurched. Then they were hovering over the drop zone, ropes deployed. Go, 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 she clipped onto the rope and dropped. 30 meters in seconds, boots hitting rocky ground, weapon up, scanning for threats. The rest of the team followed. One by one they materialized from the darkness. Within 90 seconds both teams were on the ground, the helicopters banked away, engines fatting, and then they were alone. 12 operators in enemy territory. Miles from support, with only each other and the night. Sarah activated her night vision. The world turned green. She could see the ravine ahead, steep walls, loose rock, exactly as the satellite imagery had shown. "Move out," she whispered into the calm. They moved, single file, Sarah on point, every step deliberate, every sound muted. This was what she'd trained for, what she'd done hundreds of times, but it never got easier. The fear never went away. You just learned to function through it, to use it as fuel instead of letting it freeze you. An hour in, Morrison slipped. His boot caught loose rock. For a moment he teetered on the edge of a 15-foot drop. Sarah's hand shot out, grabbed his vest, pulled him back. He nodded thanks. They kept moving. 2 hours in, they heard voices. Sarah raised her fist. The team froze. She crept forward, peered over a rock formation. 2 guards, smoking cigarettes. AK-47 slung over their shoulders, laughing about something, completely unaware that death was 50 meters away. Sarah could take them both. 2 shots, 2 seconds, but gunfire would alert the compound. She signaled Walsh, hand signals, knives only, silent takedown. Walsh and Rodriguez moved like shadows. The guards never saw them coming. It was over in seconds, bodies dragged off the path, weapons secured. The team kept moving. 3 hours in, the compound came into view, exactly where it was supposed to be. Lights visible through windows, guards patrolling walls. Sarah studied it through her scope, counted 12 visible targets, noted positions, patrol patterns, weapon placements. This was the moment, the point of no return. Once they moved forward, there was no pulling back, no calling for help, no second chances. She looked at her team, saw determination, saw fear, saw warriors ready to do the impossible. "Phase 1 begins now," she whispered. "God help us all." What does fear smell like? It smells like sweat and metal, like cordite waiting to be born, like the moment before everything explodes and you have to decide who you are. Sarah Chen had smelled it 1,000 times, in Fallujah, in Syria, in black sites that didn't have names. But tonight, kneeling in rocky soil 300 meters from a hostile compound, it smelled different. It smelled like responsibility. Because tonight, 11 operators were trusting her with their lives. And one arrogant lieutenant was depending on her to care enough to save him. She adjusted her scope, breathed slowly, counted heartbeats. The compound spread before her like a tactical puzzle. Guard tower, north corner, 1 target. Roving patrol, west wall, 2 targets. Entrance checkpoint, 3 targets. Sniper position, main building roof, 1 target. All of them obstacles. All of them capable of killing her team. All of them someone's son, brother, father. That was the thing civilians never understood. Operators didn't see enemies as evil. They saw them as humans doing a job. It didn't make killing them easier, just necessary. "Overwatch in position," she whispered into her comm. "I have eyes on 7 tangos. Morrison, Chen, you're on building entry. Rodriguez, Walsh, your park extraction. Everyone else holds perimeter. We go on my mark." Her crosshairs settled on the sniper. That was target 1, the most dangerous, the one who could wreck everything with a single shot. She watched him through her scope. Young, maybe 22, smoking, not paying attention. Probably thought this was going to be another boring night. Probably had a girl back home. Probably dreamed of a life beyond this compound. In 4 seconds, he wouldn't have a life at all. Sarah's finger rested on the trigger. She'd done this hundreds of times, taken shots that mattered, ended lives to save lives, but it never became routine. Every time she had to choose. Every time she had to accept the weight of what she was about to do. Mark, the rifle kicked. The sound suppressor reduced the shot to a quiet cough. Through the scope, she watched the sniper crumple. No drama, no Hollywood death throes, just there 1 second, gone the next. Target eliminated. Threat neutralized. Human life ended. Tango down, move, move, move. The team flowed forward like water, practiced, efficient. Morrison and Chen reached the wall, scaling equipment deployed. They were up and over in 30 seconds. Inside, Chen's voice crackled. Two hostiles in hallway. Sarah adjusted her angle, saw movement through a window, two figures, armed, unaware. Take them. Double tap from suppressed weapons. The hostiles dropped. Clean, quick, professional. But then alarm. Someone had found the body on the roof. Suddenly the compound erupted. Lights flooded the grounds. Men poured from buildings, shouting, running, chaos. The element of surprise was gone. All units adapt and overcome. Morrison, Chen find Park, everyone else suppress and cover. Sarah's world narrowed to her scope. Target, breathe, fire, target, breathe, fire. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hostile targets falling like dominoes, each shot perfect. Each kill necessary, but they kept coming. More than anticipated, way more. Contact north side, Rodriguez's voice was tight. 6 tangos, maybe 7, moving to flank. Sarah swiveled, found them, dropped 2, but they were spreading out, using cover. These weren't amateurs, these were trained fighters who understood tactics. Walsh, you've got hostiles coming through your sector. I see them, engaging. The night lit up with muzzle flashes. The quiet operation had become a firefight. Sarah's training kicked in. Calculate, prioritize, the biggest threats first. Guard tower, hostile with PKM machine gun. If he got set up, he'd chew through her team like paper. She tracked him. Wind was minimal. Distance, 400 meters. Slight elevation drop. Breathe in, hold, fire. The heavy machine gunner fell, but not before he got off a burst. Tracers streaked across the compound. Someone screamed. Sarah's heart clenched. Who's hit? Rodriguez, Walsh's voice. Leg wound, still mobile. Get him to cover. Morrison, where are you? Second floor, found Park's cell. Ma'am, he's in bad shape. They worked him over pretty good. Sarah felt cold fury settle in her chest. Park had been beat, tortured, and for what? Intelligence, revenge, sport, didn't matter. He was one of theirs now, and they were bringing him home. Can he move? Barely, but we'll get him out. Do it. Everyone else start moving toward extraction point. We're leaving. But leaving was proving impossible. The hostiles had regrouped, organized. Someone smart was commanding them, someone who understood how to counter a special operations raid. Sarah saw the problem immediately. Her team was being corralled, forced into a kill zone. If they kept moving on the planned route, they'd walk into a crossfire that would cut them down. She had to do something, had to shift the dynamic, had to give her team a chance. New plan. Everyone hold position for 30 seconds. I'm relocating. Ma'am, what are you? Trust me, Walsh. Sarah grabbed her rifle and moved, fast, low. Using every piece of cover, she circled wide, came at the compound from a different angle, found high ground. A rocky outcrop that gave her visibility on the kill zone the hostiles were setting up. There, 12 fighters moving into position, perfect ambush. They thought they were clever. They thought they had it figured out. They had no idea death was watching them through a scope. Sarah settled into position, controlled her breathing. This was going to be hard, fast shooting, multiple targets, moving targets under stress. The kind of shooting that separated good snipers from legendary ones. She'd done it before in Fallujah, in Syria, in places that didn't have names. She could do it again. She had to. Her team was counting on her. Going hot in 5. When I start shooting, you move. Fast and hard toward extraction. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just move. Captain, that's suicide. There's too many. 4, 3, 2, 1, she fired. The first hostile dropped. She worked the bolt, fired again. Second hostile down, again, third, again, fourth. The enemy scattered, confused, trying to figure out where the shots were coming from. That confusion bought her team 10 seconds. They moved, running hard, carrying Park between them. Sarah kept firing. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Return fire found her position. Rounds kicked up dirt inches from her face. Ricochet screamed off rocks. She didn't flinch, couldn't flinch. Her team needed 15 more seconds. She gave them 20. 9th, 10th, 11th. Her rifle ran dry. She dropped the magazine, loaded a fresh one, kept firing. They were getting her range now, bullets getting closer. One clipped her shoulder. She felt the impact, felt blood, ignored it, kept shooting. We're clear, Walsh's voice. Captain, extract. Sarah fired 3 more shots. Then she moved, bullets chasing her. She ran in a crouch, sliding, diving, behind rocks. Behind cover, her shoulder screamed. Blood running down her arm, didn't matter, keep moving. She burst from cover, sprinted toward her team. Hostile fighters poured out of the compound, giving chase. Sarah could hear them, feel them, they were close, too close. Morrison appeared from behind a boulder, providing covering fire, buying her seconds. She reached the team. Run! They ran, all of them, through the night, down the ravine, Park barely conscious, Rodriguez limping, Sarah bleeding, but alive, all of them alive. The extraction point was 1 kilometer away. The helicopter was inbound. They could hear the rotors, salvation coming from the sky. But between them and the landing zone, 300 meters of open ground, and at least 2 squads of hostile fighters converging on their position. "This is going to get worse before it gets better," Sarah said. "Captain, we've got movement left flank," Walsh called out. "At least 8 tangos. Right flank too," Chen added. "Maybe more." They were surrounded, outnumbered, wounded, and the helicopter couldn't land in a hot zone. Sarah made the decision in 2 seconds. "You take Park. Get to the bird, I'll hold them here." "Like hell," Morrison started. "That's an order, petty officer. Get Lieutenant Park on that helicopter. The intelligence he's carrying is more important than any of our lives. Move." They moved. Sarah positioned herself behind a boulder formation. She had 2 magazines left, maybe 60 rounds against dozens of fighters. The math didn't work, but math didn't matter. Only mission success mattered. Only getting her team home mattered. She chambered a round, sighted the first target, and began firing. 1, 2, 3, 4, methodical, precise, suppressing fire to keep them from flanking her team. The helicopter touched down. She saw her team load, saw Park being carried aboard, saw the pilot gesturing frantically. 30 seconds until they had to lift off or risk taking fire that would down the bird. She fired her last magazine, dropped the empty weapon, pulled her sidearm, and sprinted for the helicopter. Rounds kicked up dirt behind her. Someone was shouting in Arabic, "Close, too close." 20 meters, 15, 10, 5. She dove through the helicopter door as it lifted off, Walsh and Morrison pulling her inside. Rounds pinged off the armored hull, but they were airborne, clear, safe. Sarah lay on the deck, breathing hard, adrenaline draining away, blood soaking her uniform. She looked at Park, beaten, unconscious but alive. She looked at her team, scratched, bleeding, exhausted, but alive. "Mission complete," she said into her radio. "Asset secure. Intelligence recovered. No friendly KIA." Admiral Patterson's voice came back. "Outstanding work, Night Fox. Welcome home." The flight back took 4 hours. Sarah used that time to let the medic patch her shoulder, to write her mission report, to finally let herself process what had just happened. She'd gone back. She'd done the impossible thing one more time, and now, finally, it was over. Home, what does that word even mean after 12 years of war? Is it a place, a feeling, a person? Or is it something you carry inside, something that gets heavier with every mission, every loss, every choice that leaves scars you can't see? Sarah Chen stood at her apartment window in Virginia Beach 3 days after the mission. Her shoulder was bandaged. Her body was exhausted. But her mind wouldn't stop, couldn't stop, because that's what war did to you. It rewired your brain until peace felt more dangerous than combat. The nightmares had started again. Every time she closed her eyes, she was back in that compound, back on that rocky outcrop, watching targets fall through her scope, feeling the weight of each decision, each life taken, each life saved. The therapist at the VA had told her this would happen, told her that returning to combat would reopen wounds she'd spent years trying to heal. But knowing it was coming didn't make it easier. Her encrypted phone buzzed, a message from Morrison. "Ma'am, Lieutenant Park is awake. He's asking to see you." Sarah stared at the message. Part of her wanted to delete it, to pretend she never saw it, to maintain the distance that made everything bearable. But another part, the part that had led 11 operators into hell and brought them all home, needed to know he was okay, needed to close the loop. She arrived at the Naval Hospital 20 minutes later. Park's room was on the 3rd floor. 2 MPs stood guard outside. When they saw her, they straightened, saluted. Word had spread. Everyone knew now. Everyone knew who she was, what she'd done. The invisible woman with the mop had become a legend again, and Sarah hated every second of it. Park looked small in the hospital bed. Bruised, bandaged, IV lines running into his arm. When he saw her, something flickered across his face. Shame, gratitude, recognition. Captain Chen, I don't know what to say. Sarah pulled up a chair, sat down, studied the young lieutenant who'd mocked her just days ago. How about thank you? That usually works. Thank you, God, thank you. You saved my life. After what I did, after how I treated you, you still came for me. Why? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. You want the truth, please. Because despite being an arrogant ass, you're still one of ours. Because your mother shouldn't have to bury her son. Because I've seen too many flag-draped coffins and I couldn't let yours be another one, not if I could prevent it. She leaned forward. But let me be clear, Lieutenant. This isn't about you earning forgiveness. This is about me refusing to let who you are define what I do. I saved you because that's what operators do. We bring people home, even when they don't deserve it. Park's eyes filled with tears. I was so stupid, so arrogant. I thought being a SEAL meant I was better than everyone else, that I'd earned the right to look down on people. You know what makes a real operator, Park? It's not the training, it's not the missions, it's not the trident on your chest. It's how you treat people when you have power over them. It's whether you use your strength to protect or to dominate. It's whether you see service as a privilege or a right. She stood, started to leave, then turned back. You've got a choice now. You can go back to being the man who kicked over someone's mop bucket for laughs, or you can become the man who understands what service really means. The man who treats everyone with dignity. The man who leads by example instead of intimidation. The man who knows that true strength is protecting those who can't protect themselves. I want to be that man, Park said quietly. I want to be better. Then be better. Don't just say it. Live it. Every day, every interaction, because the world is full of people who talk about honor and courage, but honor and courage are verbs, not nouns. They're things you do, not things you claim. Sarah walked out, down the hallway, past the MPs who saluted again. She found Walsh waiting in the lobby. He stood when he saw her. Captain, how is he? He'll live, physically anyway, mentally that's going to take time. Walsh nodded. I wanted to thank you properly for what you did out there. You could have died holding that position, but you stayed, you gave us time, you saved all of us. That's the job, Sergeant. No, ma'am, that's beyond the job, that's sacrifice, that's leadership. That's everything they try to teach us, but few people actually embody. Sarah felt uncomfortable with the praise, with the reverence. She'd done what needed to be done, nothing more. How's Rodriguez? Legs healing, he'll be fine, he wanted me to give you this. Walsh handed her an envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. Captain Chen, I'm sorry for how I treated you. You showed me what real strength looks like. It's not about size or rank or ego. It's about who you are when it matters. Thank you for teaching me that lesson. I'll never forget it. Chief Rodriguez. Sarah folded the note, put it in her pocket. These words were good, necessary, but they didn't change what had happened, didn't erase the laughter in that corridor, didn't undo the mockery. They were apologies from people who'd learned a lesson, but Sarah had paid the price for that lesson with pieces of herself she'd never get back. Tell Rodriguez I accept his apology. Tell him to be better. Tell all of them to be better. I will, but ma'am, about you. I'm done, Walsh. This was my last mission. I've paid my dues. I've earned my peace. What will you do now? Sarah looked out the hospital windows, at the base in the distance, at the ocean beyond, at the world she'd fought to protect. I'm going to write. I'm going to share what I've learned, not through classified missions or combat operations, but through words, through helping the next generation understand what service really means, what it costs, what it demands, what it gives back. The world needs that, Walsh said. The world needs people who understand what's worth fighting for and what's worth letting go. 2 weeks later, Sarah sat at her laptop, staring at a blank page, Chapter 1, What They Don't Tell You About Being a Warrior. Her fingers hovered over the keys. Where did she even start? How did she explain the weight of command, the burden of decisions made in fractions of seconds, the way violence changes you in ways you can't articulate? She thought about that corridor at Little Creek, about the woman with the mop who'd been invisible, about the operators who'd mocked her, about the mission that had pulled her back into a world she tried to leave. And she began to write. They call us heroes, but we're not heroes. We're people who chose a path that demanded everything and promised nothing. We're warriors who learned that strength isn't about domination, it's about restraint. We're operators who discovered that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward despite it. This is what they don't tell you about service. This is what the movies get wrong. This is the truth that every veteran knows but few can express. We fight not because we love violence, but because we love what violence protects. We sacrifice not because we're special, but because someone has to. We endure not because we're strong, but because giving up isn't an option. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She almost deleted it, then saw the preview. Captain Chen, this is Secretary of Defense Morrison. I'm writing to inform you that you've been selected for the Medal of Honor for actions during Operation Broken Arrow. The ceremony will be held at the White House in 6 weeks. Your presence is requested but not required. However, I hope you'll attend. The country should know what you did. Sarah stared at the message. The Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration, the one recognition that truly mattered, but receiving it meant publicity, meant exposure, meant the end of any hope for a quiet life. She thought about her father, about his pride in her service, about the operators who died so Park could escape with that intelligence, about Morrison and Walsh and Chen and Rodriguez, the team that had trusted her to lead them through the impossible. She typed her response. Mr. Secretary, I'm honored by this recognition, but I must respectfully decline. Ghost unit operators don't receive public commendations. Our work is classified. Our identities protected. Accepting this award would compromise operational security for every operator currently serving in similar roles. I hope you understand. The response came 30 minutes later. I do understand, Captain, and your decision only reinforces why you were selected. The medal will be placed in your file as a classified commendation. But know this, the highest levels of government are aware of what you've done. Your service will never be forgotten. Sarah closed her laptop, walked to her balcony. The sun was setting over Virginia Beach, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Below, the base lights were coming on, illuminating the training facilities, the corridor where everything had changed, the parade ground where she'd been honored. Her phone buzzed again, a text from Walsh. Captain, heard you decline the Medal of Honor. That's the most ghost unit thing I've ever heard. Your father would have been proud. We're all proud. Enjoy your retirement. You earned it. She smiled, set the phone down. For the first time in 20 years, she had no missions pending, no objectives to complete, no enemies to engage, just time to write, time to heal, time to figure out who Sarah Chen was when she wasn't being Night Fox. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of salt water and distant storms. Somewhere in the world, other operators were preparing for other missions. The warrior's path continued as it always would. But for Sarah Chen, Captain, USMC Force Recon Ghost Unit 7 retired, the war was finally over. Real warriors don't advertise. They do the job, save the lives that need saving, and then go home to live the life they've earned. They know when to fight and when to hold position. They understand that sometimes the greatest act of courage is choosing peace over glory, family over fame, and life over legend. Sarah Chen had fought, she had served, she had sacrificed, and now, finally, she got to live. The sun set over Virginia Beach, and Night Fox watched the darkness come, unafraid, at peace and free. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.